art processes. Every artist has one, and every artist has their own way of doing things. Today I'm going to show you my way of doing things and how I make stuff like this. Actually, that might be the only similar thing I've done recently. Let's share some other examples. Also, fun fact, this is my first ever video. Not really important to the context of the video, but yeah. So I'm gonna draw my OC Meira today, and I'll go over my art process and maybe a bit about the character story. Let's get to it. So, editor Leah here, I just realized the reference I used in this video was in fact AI generated. I am so sorry for this. I am absolutely livid that I use this as a reference. And also, I am extremely angry at Pinterest for giving me this reference in the first place. Why must everything be AI generated? Like, why? Anyways, I just hope this doesn't affect your enjoyment of the video, and I'm really sorry for that. On with the video. I usually start with a really rough sketch that I did off camera because I didn't want to show my suffering to all of you wonderful people. Anyways, we're doing a more detailed sketch right now, which is just adding the details to the face and, I don't know, refining the shape. I'm not really sure what I'm talking about, as you can tell. One thing to note is to use references. I'm sure you've heard this 100 times before, but references are important. Another important thing is to flip the canvas, and hopefully without crashing the app and showing your audience this monstrosity. Let's not dwell on that. So, flipping the canvas is useful because it not only crashes your app, but also helps you spot mistakes, which I'm sure you've heard a million times before, but you can hear from me as well. Anyways, our next step is the refined sketch. I'm not actually sure what to call this. It's not really a sketch, but it's not really line art either. It's like a mixture of both, or in between, I guess. Basically, this is the guidelines for painting later on, and it will be in the final painting, which is why I'm trying to make this as perfect as possible. And yeah, I'm also able to correct some of my previous mistakes with this new layer and add some more details. So skipping forward a bit because there really isn't much else to say. For the base color, you kind of just choose the color you want to use. Also, I forgot an year for some reason earlier, so we're just adding that in. But yeah, there really isn't much to say about the base color. You know what? No, let's talk about the lore of our lovely OC for a bit because we have the time. Um, Mira is a star enforcer, which I know doesn't really explain much because you guys don't know what that is. Basically, she travels from world to world completing missions for the gods, basically deities who oversee the worlds they go to. I'm mansplaining, I'm sorry. Uh, but yeah, she's a bit of a rebel. Not like she's mischievous kind of rebel, but more like she wants to rebel against the gods. She doesn't really agree with them. That's mainly because her world was destroyed and she was kind of forced to work with them. Also, she is immortal. Fun fact. That really isn't very fun if you look at her backstory that I may or may not cover in a future video. I think something else that is fun to know is that her memories get wiped every 100 years or so. This is kind of like, I don't know, her memory capacity runs out. I don't know. I'm terrible at explaining this. I'm not gonna say much more about Meira because I have a future video planned all about her. But all you need to know is that she is a immortal world traveler, and that's also why she's a galaxy themed, in case you couldn't tell. Actually, I'm not sure you can tell by that small little reference window in that corner over there. But basically, she has a lot of star motifs in her design, and her hair is also blue and purple, which is like galaxy colors. I don't know. And she also has stars on her turtleneck thing. Shirt, I don't know. Yeah, it's a galaxy theme. So it's the next day of the painting process, and we're starting off with me struggling. Yeah, I was trying to alpha lock the layer, and it wasn't quite as easy as I thought it was going to be because I'm trying out a new program and have no idea what I'm doing. That is new to me, not new to the world, I guess. But yeah, I've been using Medibang for like a long time before this, and I recently switched to a new tablet, so I'm trying out some new apps. And right now I'm using HiPaint, which I'm actually quite happy with so far because it's actually much simpler than Medibang and IBIS as well, which I'm sure will be controversial. Also, the features are pretty good too, so yeah. Anyways, we're starting the rendering process with the hair because it's just a tiny bit more easier than the rest of it, which is good for my self-esteem. Not gonna lie, I still struggled with it because I wasn't actually sure what I wanted to do at first. I was trying to kind of replicate this piece I did recently, which had like really cool hair texture, but I don't remember what I did for that. So I was kind of clueless while doing the hair for this piece. I just kind of added in some shadows, some lighter bits, and referred to the reference and hope it worked out. Also, one thing I tried with this piece was adding lighter colors into the kind of dark, shadowy bits of the hair. This is something I saw on a YouTube short tutorial. I'll see if editor me can find that tutorial and put it on the screen and also in the description. And I just wanted to see how that looked because I thought it was a really interesting way of shading. And that's the thing with art. You can kind of try out new stuff with every piece and you learn something from it. And I ended up really liking the look of that kind of lighter color. I don't know. It's supposed to make your hair look like, transparent and soft, I think. I'm not sure if I executed it correctly, but I still really like the look of it, so although that ends well, I think that's the saying. We're going back to some struggling again. I didn't really know what to do with the highlights, so I just kind of set the layer to overlay and kind of worked with that. I did also use like a softer brush, the medium airbrush, I think, and I shifted the hue at the end because it didn't really match the design. I also tried different blending modes, but overlay looks the best, so we're sticking with that. We're finally adding some final touches like the individual hair strands that we didn't add earlier because details come at the end. That's pretty important, I think. Also, some darker colors for the shadows because the shadows I had earlier weren't really dark enough, and adding a darker color just kind of add to the dimensionality of the hair. I don't know. For the highlights, I kind of picked the color between like the complementary color and the hair color. This is like a part of color theory. Complementary colors contrast each other and allow one to stand out and all that. I don't know. I'm not a professional on color theory, honestly. I say that, but I got an art exam where color comes into play in like a week or so, wish me luck on that. Anyways, we're just kind of adding more hair strands for the hair texture, and that's kind of us done with the hair, I guess. So, time for the skin. I actually kind of enjoy rendering the skin. It's kind of fun. Um, to do to start out, we block in the shadows, and to do that, you zoom out of the reference and you kind of try to spot the big shapes. So the next step is to find the midtone, and to do that, you paint over the regular skin color with your shadow color at a lower brush opacity, and then you just color pick that. I hope that's well explained because I cannot explain it any better than that. This is useful for kind of less obvious shadows and also for blending colors without the blending tool. I don't like the blending tool because it makes your shadows really soft, and I'm pretty sure you've heard this before, but you don't want that because it just makes it look too soft, if you know what I mean. Another good technique for finding the midtone is to kind of just shade something like a sphere or a strip with the colors you want. Here's an example, and then just color pick from that. Also, if you're wondering why I decided to draw Willy Wonka, this is something I did for school. Also, if you didn't know it was Willy Wonka, well, now you do, so yeah. Another good piece of advice for shading is to use like softer brushes. I like to use the medium brushes in high paint, and the medium flow brush, particularly, is pretty good because it has hard edges, but it also has like a faded end. And also, I like to use it at a lower opacity so that it blends the colors better. After I'm done with the basic shading, I like adding a little pizzazz to the face, if you know what I mean. To do this, I like adding purple to the shadows. It just makes the skin look more interesting. And it looks good on the skin because they're analogous colors. I knew it started with an A. And we're moving on to the blush. Pick a reddish, more saturated version of the skin color and apply it wherever you want. I like to apply on the cheeks, the chin, the neck, the ear. And after you do that, just set the layer to multiply and adjust the opacity. And that's us done with the face. We're doing close now. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how to paint clothes in semi-realism. At the very least, not digitally. I can kind of do it when I'm cel shading and in traditional art. Actually, here are some examples that I've done. I know they look kind of questionable, but that's because they're old. The clothes look fine though. Anyways, I'm just kind of messing around with this piece, just hoping it looks good. Yeah, I'm a terrible artist in that aspect because I usually just go with the flow, which is not the best advice in the world. Like, as much as I like to hate on theory, it is very important to know it and to apply it when drawing and not be like me, just kind of doing whatever flows. Um, but yeah. Hey, what can I say? I'm a bona fide gambler, if you couldn't tell by the fact I drew Kave from Genshin Impact. Anyways, back on topic, the main thing I'm doing with the shading is just kind of adding darker values where there's less light, and blending it with the midtone like I did with the skin. We're just hoping it looks three-dimensional, and that's kind of us done with the clothes. So we're moving on to the face details. This also includes the ear that is kind of disproportionate right now. I fixed this later off camera because I found this mistake while writing the scripts. But yeah, the ear was a difficult part of the drawing because there wasn't an ear in the reference and I had to look it up on Pinterest. And because of like lighting differences, it was kind of difficult to just put that in there. It looks fine, but yeah. A useful tip that you can see me doing here is just adding the colors I used in the ear to the nose. This is just kind of to, I don't know, unite the piece. You're kind of using the same color so that, like, the darker colors in the ear wouldn't stand out as much. Because if they're just, like, really dark, like, just one part that's really dark, it does stand out a lot. I'm also adding it to the eye because, like I said, unity. And yeah, we're doing the eyes now. We're starting off with the eye white. That's definitely not what that's called, but you know, the white part of the eye. With the shading, I'm gonna just add darker bits around the edges. I did also try to add in lash shadows, but emphasis on the try, because that didn't work out so well. So, yeah, we're not doing that. Moving on to the irises, Meira has these beautiful, bright purple eyes, and we're just gonna start by shading it around the edges and on top. Uh, I also use a darker color just to make the eyes a bit sharper. To stylize the eyes, I add in some lines to replicate the eye patterns. And for the highlights, I started replicating the highlights in the reference, but I did switch to star-shaped highlights just to match her galaxy theme. I also add some stars into her eyes because they're pretty and I like them. So, yeah. Adding some final details, we're adding in the canthus and waterline, that little edge of the eye and the bottom of the eye. And we're moving on to the eyelashes. For the eyelashes, pick the hair color, the darker shade of the hair, and just draw in the general shape of the lashes and kind of add some eyelashes sticking out, going outwards, and that's kind of us done with eyelashes. The eyebrows is a similar process. Use the same color, draw in the general shape, and just add in the individual details. So, moving on to the lips. And God, do I say moving on a lot. Anyways, pick a pinkish color similar to the skin, unlike me who chose a color that kinda stood out a lot. You don't really want that unless your character is wearing lipstick, but oh well. Anyways, block it in and then blend the edges with a soft low opacity brush and finally add some shading. Alright, so I fixed the lips by going over them with the skin color at a lower opacity. This should help it stand out less. For the shading, I mainly base it off of the reference. One thing I do like to do when shading the lips is shade in the very edges of the lips. This is just a personal preference, but if you do look at photos, the edges are usually the darkest part of the lips. After that, I just add in some highlights and finishing off with some final touches. And after we're done with all those details, we're just going to shade around the lips just so that the lips look like they're actually on the face and not just floating there. We don't want that. Then we're done. Alright, final touches. We're almost there, guys. Almost. This is just us fixing stuff, flipping the canvas to better spot mistakes, using Liquify to, I don't know, fix the proportions. And I don't know why I'm talking so fast. Also, I just realized I forgot to do the chest window, so we're just gonna do that real quick. Add in some shadows and why does it look like that? Oh god. That's not how that's supposed to look. At least I don't think that's how that's supposed to look. We're just gonna not do that. Um or no, I wanna do it. I'm too persistent for my own good. Oh, why can't I get this right? Okay, we're not doing that. No, no, no. Anyways, we're just gonna go back to doing the finishing touches and pretend that never happened. We're just shading in the jacket for some dimensionality. Yeah, there really isn't much to it. I originally thought I was done by this point, which is why I started changing the color of the background. And then I saw the stars that were missing from the turtleneck. So actually, I didn't see the stars, which was the problem. So we're just gonna add that real quick. At which point we also realized that we forgot to do the braid and the golden details. So we're adding those in as well. Such a forgetful artist. I like to keep things in the back of my mind sometimes. Like just little details. I'm like, I don't want to bother with this right now, so we're just gonna move on. And I just forget about it. It's a problem. A problem that I have not yet solved. So you're gonna see this happen a lot, probably. Also, I did struggle with that braid a bit because once again I had to add in the highlights, and once again I do not know how to add in the highlights. I think it's a common part of my art process and also something you will see repeatedly, which is me struggling because that's just a part of my art process, I guess. Not a fun part, but a part of it. Want to know what wasn't painful and difficult to do? The gold bits. I love the gold bits because I just really like rendering gold, silver, and metallic surfaces. I personally find them kind of simple to do, although I wouldn't be able to explain how to do it because I am terrible at explaining things. But I do actually really like doing gold and silver and stuff like that. So for the base color, just pick your gold, silver, or whatever color your surface is and place them where you need them. For Meira, it would be her earrings, her turtleneck, just like the edge of the turtleneck, and her hair thingies that I don't know the name of. Hair rings? I don't know. And after you're done with the base color, obviously it's the rendering, which I'm doing right now. Like I said before, I don't know how to explain how to render this. The only way I do know how to describe it is just make your brushstrokes visible. So like don't worry about blending too much and just capture those brushstrokes in the gold and silver. That sounds like nonsense. Probably is, but that's how I like to do things. Another thing that I find really fun to do are the gems. Maybe I just like doing shiny stuff. I'm like a dragon, you know? Like an art dragon. I feel like we're going off topic here. But yeah. I didn't actually know how to do the gems at first, which is why I looked up a reference for it. But I ended up just kinda going with the flow because I'm that kind of artist, I guess. Also, her gems are the color of her eyes, which I find pretty cool. It's like a little unity throughout the design. You got the purple highlights, the purple gems, purple eyes. Very purple. I like purple, okay? But yeah, that's kind of us done with gems. So that's basically it for this piece. We're just adding in some final touches. And we're gonna change the background color, which I do change later. I know it doesn't look very good right now. Our final step is to add the signature. And that's kind of us done with the piece. So here is the final piece. I definitely like it more than I did when I first finished it. The only complaint I have about this piece is the fact that the reference itself was AI generated, which once again I am very, very sorry about. It was very obvious in hindsight, and I've got no one else to blame but myself. But there really isn't much I can do about it right now, and I spent too much time on this video to just scrap it. So that's why I'm publishing it anyways. On another note, I did learn a lot from this video, not just by making the piece, but also the video itself. I think talking about what I actually do really allows me to process it and not just kind of do it without knowing what I'm doing. I hope you enjoyed the video. It was a very fun experience for me, and I definitely hope to make more videos in the future. I will warn you though, I am a bit busy as of late, so you might have to be patient for my next video. But draw in the meantime and do stick around. And that's kind of it. I hope you learned something. Bye bye!